Hello, everyone, and welcome to Achieving Success with Olivia Atkin. I am your host, Olivia Atkin. Each week, we will discuss the roadmap of achieving your personal and professional success. We give you real-life stories on growing personally and professionally to achieve your life and career goals with the help of some top-notch guests. Today, we are speaking with Elizabeth Bennett McKinney. Elizabeth Bennett McKinney is the founder of Church Hurt in America, a pioneer in bullying and addressing spiritual trauma within Christian communities. Leveraging over 2 decades of experience as a speaker, author, and counselor, she empowers individuals to overcome emotional pain caused by negative church experiences. Elizabeth's unique blend of personal faith, expertise in psychology, and insights into bullying places her in the prime position to be a catalyst for healing in the church community. Each initiative she leads has the potential to trigger a chain of transformative events, creating a domino effect of spiritual recovery and reform. You can find Elizabeth by going to her website, churchhurt.net, or by email at elizabethbennettmckinney@churchhurt.net. Hello, Elizabeth. It's fantastic having you on the show today.
Hello, Olivia. How are you?
I am good. To start off the show, can you tell me what success means and looks like to Elizabeth Bennett McKinney?
Okay, when I look at success, I look at starting the day with Jesus. I look at wrapping my life around Jesus. I look at success as giving Jesus my life. Um, and I look at success when you start the day, start it out with Jesus. But I also see success as someone in the workplace who's gotten a whole lot of work that she's still got to do and has fallen behind, and she managed to get it done before she went home. That's success. There's just different ways to look at it. That's not one way.
I completely agree with you. And I think sometimes we think that if we don't hit certain benchmarks, we're not successful, whether it's for the day or the month. And in reality, like you
Yes.
said, we get to shape what that looks like. We get to
Yes.
be the person who tells our story, and it should change, and it should be benchmarked to what is feasible for you. That being said, Elizabeth, you bullying, as I mentioned in your description, is something you are heavily passionate about. If I could
Yes.
speak to that would be good. You're very passionate about it, and it's something that has been a different aspect of your life throughout your life and really shaped who you are today. So can
Yes.
you give us some background on your journey with bullying?
Well, it started, I would say I was around 12 years old. This was not out by the world. It was in the church. Um, I grew up Presbyterian, but we went when I was about 6. We started going to an evangelical church on Sunday nights. And this was during the Jesus movement in the 70s. And if anybody listening, listening can remember this time, you remember the Holy Spirit poured out on this country like I'd never seen him before. People got hungry for God. It was amazing. And my parents were along, or two people that were on that bandwagon. And so we would go to on Sunday nights to an evangelical church, and I got saved there. That was when I got saved when I was 6. And we had stayed in touch with these folks throughout my elementary years. And one particular woman and her daughter, my mother had known in high school. And I'll call her Mrs. Matthews. And Mrs. Matthews had a daughter about a year younger than me, maybe. And we, you know, we they knew each other and they got acquainted. And her daughter Jill and I got acquainted, and we wound up moving into the same neighborhood they were in. And I moved in there, and there were two other little girls across the street from Jill. I'll call them Nicole and Stacy. And Nicole was my age and Stacy was Jill's age. And we all would play together. My mother really wanted me playing with this little girl. She knew her mother, she knew her background, and Mrs. Matthews was praising the Lord up one side and down the other. But what she was hiding was a strong need to be popular. She was trying to make Jill popular. She was cultivating this. And I look back now, she wasted a lot of time. Her daughter got absolutely nowhere by the time we graduated high school. But anyway, um, the four of us little girls would play together, but Jill would just always be so angry at me, nasty. And I'm like, what am I doing? And, I would tell my mother about it. And, my mother was like, she wanted me playing with this little girl. And let me interject here. One thing I've learned to do, and this is the perfect time to say it, let the Lord pick your people. You try to pick your people, you're going to get destroyed if you're not careful. I'm dead serious. He plans your life out. He plans your steps out. But anyway, back to Jill. She just started getting antsy, and I didn't know what to do. And so I would, one night my mother went down to the Matthews home to see Mrs. Matthews, because Mrs. Matthews was so openly Christian. And my mother was going on scripture by in the book of Matthew, it says, when you have trouble with someone, go to your brother. And that's what she did. But Mrs. Matthews wasn't hearing it. She wanted nothing to do with prayer. She was furious that my mother even brought anything up. And keep in mind, Mrs. Matthews was a stage mother trying to get her daughter popular. She told my mother that Jill was perfect. It was all my fault. And, within a couple of months, not only had Jill and Mrs. Matthews turned against me, but so had Nicole and Stacy. Well, these problems went throughout the neighborhood. They went into the school, like two or three schools. Yeah, three schools and two or three churches. And lies were spread about me. Mothers were taking their kids away from me, didn't want me playing with them. And other mothers were calling my mother, like, what is going on with her? Why does she keep doing this? Talking about Mrs. Matthews. I mean, evidently some people saw something was kind of off with this woman. But I realized later, with my education in psychology and my background in dealing with people, Mrs. Matthews was a classic day narcissist. This is what narcissists do. They create smear campaigns. What was so sad was a 43-year-old woman was doing it against a 12-year-old girl. That's not normal. That's not normal. And so this really did a number on me. And I look back, Nicole and Stacy, I think, were in it for the popularity. They could have cared less. They just wanted, because they were in a family of four girls with parents who worked all the time. They were, I think, emotionally neglected, if you want to know the truth. And so this went on. It went on. It calmed down a little bit in high school. But I was so oppressed, and I was having nightmares. When I was 12, I was having nightmares. I was getting sick all the time, and I was depressed. I developed clinical depression from this and a lot of social anxiety. It was very hard to socialize, very hard. I didn't know what to expect. I mean, people would, you know, prank call our house. Back then, you could make prank phone calls and not get called, not like now with caller ID. But yeah, this went on. And when I went to college, I got a little bit of a break because I got out of that environment. I got out of, we stopped going to that church after Mrs. Matthews spread her lies. And um we I got into college and got some confidence back. Because this took all of my confidence away. I had developed post-traumatic stress, social anxiety, clinical depression, and I was still dealing with this stuff, but I started getting my confidence back because I started seeing, wow, people actually do like me. And I developed friends in school. And it was, I don't know, but I had gone to college and I got into psychology, which became my major, and which was what I knew to do, and I was good at it. I tutored psychology when I was in college, and I started understanding people. A lot of Christians poo-poo psychology. They're against it, but me, for me personally, it gave me a strong understanding of people, why they are the way they are, and why they do what they do. And I went into it too, partially for Mrs. Matthews. I'm like, help me understand this woman, God. And that's when it's kind of dawned on me, narcissism. I started back then, it was narcissistic personality, but now narcissism is a character disorder, and it is very prevalent in our society today. And so I, bit by bit, started gaining confidence, and I was at Clemson at the time. I started working on this bullying stuff on my own. I'd seen an article about it. I'm like, wow, people are taking this seriously, because no people. When I was growing up, all I heard was, you need to ignore this stuff, blah blah blah. This is just kid stuff, blah blah blah. But I started formulating theories of my own, of adults who went through it as children. And when we got on the internet, I went and looked out of curiosity. There was very little on the internet about it. Now, there was stuff over in England with Tim Field. He put it out there, over in Britain, but over here, very little. And I just put my stuff on my website. I got it copywritten, went through the whole process with that, and put them up. It was the first informational website to go live in the United States. And when I say informational, it outlined the problem. It even gave some solutions. I put the theories on there. Now today, I see where my theories are being used. And that's good. That's good.
That being
And
said, oh,
go ahead.
um, that being said as well, one of the things you brought up in telling us about your journey and your experience, not just mainly focused on the side of you were bullied first, and that drove you to go, I want to make a difference in this way. And I think a lot of us, whether it's in short term or if we don't reflect down the line, don't realize sometimes those experiences we go through can really shape the person you are in good and bad ways. And a lot of times, one thing that you brought up is the bullying you experienced as a child also then led to other issues you had. It wasn't like, okay, I separated from these individuals, I'm all better now,
I
we're
wasn't.
good.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times people forget when time fades, or if they don't address it, the emotional and psychological impact that can last years, even decades, and some of which you brought up, the confidence, the depression. What are some of the invisible wounds that survivors carry, and how do these wounds really shape relationships and confidence, and even the sense of identity that people aren't speaking as much about?
Well, I'll say people aren't speaking much about this. Is a form of abuse. This is a social abuse. The word bullying, to me personally, and any adult who survived this will tell you, it's demeaning. It just minimizes the problem. I call it peer abuse, because that's what this is, abuse. And what usually happens with these adults is they grow up with things like post traumatic stress, anxiety, social anxiety, depression sets in. A lot of social trauma exists, and a lot of skewed thinking, because when you're abused, you don't have normal experiences. You have, stuff that's upsetting. That's where trauma gets started. And this just keeps manifesting within you, and your thoughts as a result get skewed. And the self-fulfilling prophecy kicks in. You hear all this bad stuff they say all the time. You start believing it, because that's all you're hearing. That's all, anybody can try to tell you different, but no, I mean, this is it. This is what you've always heard. And this stuff stays with a person. Now, I was fortunate. I was healed. I was healed because I got right with God and he healed me pretty much. I mean, I still have to be careful in situations, but I do that for my own self-preservation. But a lot of times they carry this. Now, some of these adults, they grow up to be bullies themselves, these abusers themselves. They'll find ways to manipulate people, they'll gaslight, they'll become some of them may form narcissism themselves. It's just, you have to look at this case by case. There's no one way to do this, and there's no one way to diagnose this. And you just, right now, people are still being treated by the symptom when they go to their doctor, but at least something's being done. It could be, there's people who are, starting to recognize the real clinical problems that come with this. And you're dealing with an identity of this person. He's going to really struggle socially. He's probably not going to leave the house. He don't want to. Why do so? We can stay home and be safe. A lot of them will get on the internet and use that for socializing because they're safer behind the screen. And you have to be careful there. When I was really doing my work about 15 years ago, I want to share this. This population does not need to be supporting each other online. They need to be doing it in person where they've got a face and a voice because they're very socially sensitive in some cases. And I formed a group on Facebook just experimenting with people from this population just to form a support system. I had to shut it down within days. Their PTSD was going off so bad in there. I mean, they were really traumatizing each other. And I was concerned I may have had to call 911. I'm serious. And I said, I can't do this ethically. Someone's going to really get hurt here. So I shut it down. And I realized you can have this population online, you can talk to them, just don't get them in a situation where they're trying to support each other because they don't know how. They do not have good social skills in a lot of cases. Now, you have to look at it as the severity too. I think to a point we've all been bullied. We've all been teased, harassed, picked on. I can't name somebody who hasn't. And a lot of times, if you got some mild to moderate cases, it was an experience or two and they got over it. Or they may have had to go to therapy for a while, but it was all good. But then you've got these really hardcore, severe cases, and this is where it gets dangerous. And you just have to they don't have good social skills. They don't know how to socialize. And it takes a lot to heal from this. It takes a lot of work, and for me, it took a lot of Jesus. It really did.
Well, that being said, too, I want to kind of flip the script a little bit and ask you a question around, let's say I'm an individual who is walking into a new environment, and what should be like some of the red flags I look out for or alert me of like, okay, this person might be a bully and how to handle that with grace, but also know not to get too far in because of whether they're a narcissist, whatever it might be.
Okay, you walk into a room, you see, first of all, go on your own comfort level because you yourself will have to sense these people. But what I can tell you, if you walk in, see a group of females, I'd be cautious. Chances are they have already formed their social circle and you may not get in. And I would say if you see maybe one or two people lingering around here and there, they may be safe. Kind of feel the people out too, you're your best judge. But, a bully, a lot of times, a female bully she's a queen bee. She will have a lot of people around her. A lot of people will be doing things for her. They're anxious to do it. And let's see, a male bully, a younger male bully, he'll be loud, obnoxious, and everybody thinks he's so funny and cool, and they're trying to be accepted by him. And or a male bully can be by himself, a loner. Watch the loners. Some of them are really, some of them have been through this and they're kind of scared to talk to people, but some of them are just angry and don't want to deal with it. Some people by nature are just very independent. I'm one of them. My mother used to tell me all the time, "You were born independent." She, the 29th of each month, we each had family members that had birthdays, always the 29th. I was born on the 30th of my month. So my mother said, right there, that told me you were independent. So basically, those are things to look out for. I don't want to say go on, most people do go on appearance. Sad to say, I go on the heart, but most people go on appearance. If someone is well kept, well dressed, it doesn't necessarily mean they're out for something, but be cautious too. A lot, it just, again, you just have to be careful, but use your best judgment because it's very easy also to misdiagnose someone, not diagnose, but misread someone too. I've met people, I've had friends from people who are popular, people who have some fame, to people who barely can get through the door. And that is because I look at the heart. I do not look at appearance. I don't care what's going on out here. And so those are things because again, you have to be careful. But just use your good judgment and use but if you do sense that queen, be very careful with her. She's got a clique, she's got people that are fawning over her, and something a lot of them are doing it for their own selfish reasons. So
Mhm.
be careful there and be careful of the loud guy, the young loud guy, because he can be, yeah, if you're not, yeah. But and if you see that
It's
he's
funny.
go
It's
ahead.
funny you're saying that because I know a few people like that, and I'm like, yeah, it tracks. It tracks what you're saying.
So you're seeing
But
some of what I've been saying here. Yeah, this is just, but at the end of the day, make up your own mind because there are some people who are drop dead gorgeous with beautiful hearts. There are some people who leave a lot to be desired and are really ugly people not inside. So it again, use your own judgment. But if you sense something's off with someone, kind of be careful. Now, me personally, I'm careful anyway. I have to be around someone. The longer I'm with someone, the better I feel around them. That's just me, though. But again, this is a case by case thing.
that being said, I want to dive a little bit more into your thoughts. Obviously, your company now, Church Hurts, focuses around the church community and healing those
Yeah.
individuals and making sure that bullying ends and is not something that continues within the community. Why do you think, in general, whether it's the church community or um, other communities, that within a place that's supposed to be a safe space, bullying tends to happen?
Well, I think it goes back to the fact that we're human. And in the church, we all know that we're born bad. This is why we have a savior, because this alone ain't going to get us into heaven. No way. But in church, once we accept Christ into our hearts, we are called to grow in Him, transform, just daily change our ways of life. But that takes time and that takes determination and that takes a willingness to do. And I think the reason these things happen is people do not have strong spiritual growth yet, or in the case of Mrs. Matthews, they may still desire things that are out in the world. And we're called to come to the end of ourselves. This isn't about us anymore. And I think this is why these things still exist. People just have not transformed in these particular areas. But one thing I want to point out about the bully this time, the bully, there's only one bully this time, because at the end of the day, this is what's fueling every ounce of this. And I look back to when I did this before, and I see where he fueled every ounce of this. The bully is Satan himself. He is the bully. He is the one that keeps this stuff going. I've watched people. The Lord has shown me so much. I will see people, they will get angry with each other. And instead of handling it as we do in Matthew, they go tell their friends. And then that gets them upset. Congratulations, the enemy now controls the situation. Who prompted you to do that? Who prompted you to go run to your friends, told you it would be easier to solve your problems that way? And again, this goes back to spiritual growth. And those with spiritual growth, it's important that they help those that do not mentor them along, so we can stop having so many of these problems. And I think too, people, it's when you have conflict, it is easier to go run to your friends and complain. But all that's doing is making it worse. And before you know it, you've got a whole group of people upset. And who's fueling it all? Who's fueling this anger? And, we have to stop turning on each other and start learning where the real problem lies. And we just, us too, we die to ourselves. We die to the world. We die to these things around us. And that takes time and growth. If we hang on to things out there, it's just going to keep this problem going. Like with Miss Matthews, she secretly wanted her daughter to be popular, but outwardly she put herself on as this big evangelical Christian. And I think at the end of the day, she was probably more confused than anybody. But because she wanted that, she allowed the enemy in. And the real solution to this is unification. And that starts with Christ himself. You get a group without Christ, people are going to start their favoritism. They're going to start hurting each other, this kind of thing. And, all this, you get on my nerves, blah, 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 and all this stuff flares up. And that's just more division, but unification, you focus on the Lord, you focus on the word, and you start growing together. And it's beautiful. I'm in a Bible study now. I've been in it for 14 years. And we do just that. We start in the fall with a leader and a whole group of people we don't know. And through the year, through lessons, through talks, this encouragement, we start growing together. And at the end of the year, we feel like we know each other, but we're on the same page. And we're on the same page because we've got Christ in the center of it. And I think that's the key to all of this. It just, church is it should be a safe space. And my hope is to go out and share this information, not to bash Christians, because I put myself in there. I'm just as capable, but to make people aware of how the enemy kicks in and creates these problems. Because really, that's it. At the end of the day, he's the bully. He's the mean girl. He's the mean guy. He's the loud boy attracting attention. He's the queen bee, because he's fueling every ounce of this. And that's where a lot of the. Go ahead.
Elizabeth, how can people get in touch with you if they want to connect with you?
You can email me at Elizabeth Bennett McKinney at churchhurt.net. My website is churchhurt.net, and I've got a form out on there you can fill out. I check my mail daily. I get back to you as soon as possible, but you can email me, fill out that form. You can follow me on social media. I've got it linked on my website to Twitter, Instagram, and I have LinkedIn. I will connect with people professionally if they wish to do so.
Well, thank you, Elizabeth, for all of your insight today.
Well, thank you, Olivia, for having me. I've enjoyed this.
I've enjoyed it too. And a few of our key takeaways from today's conversation is bullying is a form of abuse.
Yeah.
So it is a long-term thing that we deal with, we have to heal from, and we have to be able to move forward. But as Elizabeth said, you have to deal with the problem. You have to identify the problem and actually relate to it as, in a sense of whether it's parents or other kids. This isn't, oh, okay, you'll be okay, just move on, keep going. This is a form of abuse, and there are symptoms and other things that can lie within that, as Elizabeth mentioned, confidence issues, depression issues, and you then have to address those in order to move forward in a healthy manner and have the tools in your toolbox to not only identify that, but how to deal with it as well. As well as you are the best judge of character. So if something seems off with an individual, if something does not seem right, if something does not lie with your ethical and moral decisions, you have to go, okay, is this the best person to have in my life? And sometimes, as Elizabeth mentioned, it is learning from experiences, being cautious and going, okay, what am I seeing here? And really be able to read the body language, tone, and understand that some people can have a really good heart and some don't. And it is okay to not be a part of the groups, the communities, whatever it might be, with individuals who don't and say, you know what, this just is not the right fit for me. As well as do not let the enemy control the situation. I love how Elizabeth said this because it's one thing I jokingly say all the time is for myself, I will be the most honest person you want in the room, and I will, and obviously not be disrespectful. I'll tell you the truth with grace and respect,
Yeah.
but I'm going to tell you the truth and I will tell you my full story so that no one else has the space to tell a story that you haven't heard from me or that is false. So a lot of times, whatever we're going through in life, as Elizabeth mentioned, who are you letting control the narrative? And sometimes, even though it might be something we don't want to share or we're not completely comfortable with sharing or being transparent about, sometimes it could be better to do that and be vulnerable because at the end of the day, do you want someone else to control that narrative? And that is the pure example of what Elizabeth talked about in her own story and how the telephone game happened and it spread. And in reality, there's a level of that of someone else controlling the narrative and the situation, as well as stop turning on each other and ask where the real problem is. So, one of the challenges I want to give us all today is the next time there's a conflict, whether it's big, small, whatever it might be, when you're having a conflict with someone professionally or personally, ask yourself, take that minute, take the breath, and go, where's the real problem? This was a great episode with our top-notch guest, Elizabeth Bennett McKinney. Thank you for listening and have a successful day.